This video is to go over the cross-section of the spinal cord. Similar to all the other rotatable models, you grab it, you can spin it around, you can press play and get dizzy, it spins around by itself. This goes left and right, and this enlarges it. There is one hot link, and that is to the image in your lab book. So, this is the spinal cord, and we're looking at the anterior view. Biggest question is, how the heck do I know it's the anterior view? Well, I can see the horns here, and the posterior horns right there, sometimes called dorsal horns, are larger, and the anterior horns are more rounded. So if I spin this around, I have my dorsal horns or posterior horns that are very rounded. Second, the anterior spine has a fissure, the anterior median fissure right there. The back has a sulcus, so see how that's not as deep. And lastly, and most importantly, there's a swelling right here. This is the posterior root ganglia, or dorsal root ganglia, and that's where the cell bodies of the unipolar neurons are. So this is the anterior view. Now in the spinal cord, the white matter is right here, and it is surrounding the gray matter. The gray matter sort of looks like a butterfly. Now it has 2 to 3 horns. This, I say that's only 2 horns. We have the anterior horn right here. We have the posterior horn right here. Now this one right here, it sort of looks like there's a third horn. The posterior horn of the butterfly is larger, the anterior horn is rounded, and then I could sort of see a third lateral horn right there. Now, the gray matter here is nuclei. That is cell bodies. And back here in the dorsal horn, there's cell bodies for integration neurons, and they're going to take these tracks in the posterior spine and go up to the brain and say what you felt. The anterior and the lateral horns are going to be cell bodies of motor neurons. These are neurons leaving the spinal cord and taking messages out. So the axons come together in these little tiny things called rootlets. So these things sticking out would be rootlets. So see the gray matter, the rootlets are coming out. And notice all of these rootlets right here, 1, 2, 3, 25, 26, 27, 35 rootlets. They're all coming together to form the anterior root. So we have all of these little rootlets coming out of the gray matter. They're coming out of the anterior surface of the spinal cord, and they come together to form the anterior root. And that is going to join this posterior root. So motor signals are coming out the anterior root. So if we look at the other side, we have all of these rootlets. They're coming together and forming the root. Now, for my lab exams, rootlets and root, I don't distinguish between the two. I want you to know this is the anterior root. But technically, these are rootlets over here. This is the root. Now, on our posterior side, again, I said this is posterior because I had the posterior root ganglia right there. That is cell bodies of unipolar neurons. So what happens is the axons from the unipolar neurons are coming in, and this is the peripheral axon. The cell bodies are here, and then the central axon is going through to the integration neurons in the posterior horn. Remember, anterior horn, lateral horn, posterior. So these are integration neurons, and they'll take the sense signals. Some of them will do reflexes going to the anterior. Most of them will take a track here or a track here up to the brain. So this is the posterior root. This is the posterior root ganglia, and the posterior root is then going to split into all of these rootlets. So posterior root, posterior rootlets. Again, I do not differentiate on my lab exams between roots and rootlets. Since we're on the posterior again, posterior median sulcus, and our anterior side is the anterior median fissure. So lastly, we have the gray matter in the middle. We have the anterior and posterior horns, and they actually connect. So sometimes sensory neurons, for pain and temperature, they're going to come in, and it actually is going to cross through this bridge, making up the middle of the butterfly. This is a commissary tract. It's branching from the right side of the spine to the left side of the spine. And because it's in the gray matter, this is the gray commiserate. Now, technically, there's a white commiserate tract. You actually have some signals coming down right here. Somewhere they're going to cross to this side of the anterior horn. So that would be the white commiserate. In the middle here of the gray commiserate, there is a canal. That is the central canal. And I was taught all those years ago when the dinosaurs were still roaming the earth that this is a continuation of the cerebral aqueduct and from the fourth ventricle, and the cerebral spinal fluid is going through it. I've read, I believe it was on the internet, maybe Wikipedia even, that this closes off in adults and you only have cerebral spinal fluid in the meninges. So I am not 100% sure if that was new. My teachers taught me wrong, but this is the central canal. I was taught cerebral spinal fluid goes through it, so I'm sticking to that story. So that's our spinal cord. This is twice as long as I actually thought I'd talk about it. So spin it around, look at the horns, look at the roots, and again, if you click on this, we get the enlarged view of everything. So there's a nice central canal. This would be the white commiserate. Right there, you can see the rootlets coming into the posterior horn. So see, you have a definite lateral horn there. This is the anterior horn. And it really does look like a butterfly. So, thank you. Have a good day.